What's happening, Blades? Check me out with me on intro and a live. I'm starting to figure out what I'm doing, I think. Well, I won't over-egg that because something may go wrong here, but yeah, so every little bit we're trying to get better. So how's it going? What's happening, Blades? Not much, is there? Let's be honest. I'm sure there is loads going off, and we keep getting linked to odd player here and there, but in terms of cold hard, this is what's happening. Very little seems to be happening, doesn't it? So we're going to get into that today. I've got a couple of questions from ramblers that wanted asking. We're going to touch on our latest rumours and get your comments in. Let me know what you're thinking, how it's going, what are your thoughts on what we're talking about. So morning to everybody that's just arrived in the chat. Truth Warrior says they're taking the pass. We paid for our season tickets super early and they're treating us like mugs. Pete says it's okay, Blades, the fax machine's still working. That's one for the older Blades. Yeah, we get that, Pete. Good stuff. Morning, Blades from Josh. Alan says transfer budget's an absolute disgrace. The board and Prince should be ashamed. The only thing letting this club down is them. Definitely time for them all to move on as soon as possible. Well, there's a couple of things with that, Al. I think we can get into it. We touched on last ramble the rumoured 20 million budget doesn't appear to be a thing. I'd like to think, and this is me being my most optimistic, is that it's a little bit of a ploy for when we're negotiating with other clubs. I think if we want a target, the money will be there. Don't get me wrong, I don't think we've got loads of money to spend because we haven't. But 20 million to be so uncompetitive, I just don't think it's right. In terms of the board moving on and the Prince, I think that will happen. I think that from what I understand, conversations are ongoing. We're close to a deal with more than one party. So watch this space. Watch this space. Hello, Luke X. Luke X, hi mate. Good morning. Read another article saying budget isn't as low as 20 mil. It'll be more like last time we went up. Yeah, I think we're on similar lines there, mate. Morning, Stu, one of our ramblers. Morning from sunny Mahaka. Oh, nice. Nice. Any news on potential owners? We'll get into it all, mate. Don't worry. Morning, Deck. Up the Blades, Darren. We're linked with players that aren't going to sign for us. It's unrealistic. Well, we can get into that as well, mate. No problem. And good morning, John. So thanks, everybody, for your comments this morning. Just jumping on. As I say, we'll jump back into those. But first, I've got some questions from our ramblers. Now, these our ramblers are members, essentially, that support the channel every month. It's $2.99. They get early access to our recorded videos. And I do interact with them in terms of content and what we want and how we can help grow the channel. They're involved in the development of the logo and things like that. If you're interested in doing that, that's completely up to you. It's more a case that links in the description, I believe. Again, we're a work in progress, but just by subscribing, you're supporting the channel in that way as well. So any support you can give the channel, it's much appreciated. But some questions from our ramblers, and Rob comes in with any rumours that have merit yet, and Dave Vinter backs that up with solid transfers, not existing squad members and things of that nature. So Rob, Dave, we'll get into it now, mate, lads. And Mason Holgate is the first one I'm going to touch on because he was rumoured at the last time I was editing the previous recorded ramble. So when I was doing all my rumour update, thank you for your support on that video. It's gone mental. Loads of people love that video, and we try and get better every time. But Holgate was one that I didn't include because it had just come out as I was editing that one. So we're looking at Mason Holgate as a loan option. Now, he, for me, is a ideal right wing back, can play right centre back. My only question is, do we need him? And I don't mean cards on table. I think he's an upgrade. So I don't think he's necessarily better than Baldock. I don't think he's better than Enel. I certainly think he's miles better than Jack Robinson if we're to shift the defence around. So I think he's an improvement. And I think if you're utilising one of your loan slots for your very precious 2 Premier League loan slots for Holgate, then he's got to start. But how do we get him in the team? Has it got to be that Anel shifts over to the left? Holgate comes in right centre-back? It's an odd one for me. I'm always up for bringing quality players into the club. And if this were a permanent transfer, which I don't think is possible because of his wages, I think he's rumoured to be on around 70 grand a week. I think if it were a permanent transfer, it make more sense to me because we're up in the quality of the overall squad. And then you can justify it. But the fact that we've only got 2 Premier League loan spots, and with so many positions to fill, obviously centre midfield being main one, we need a new striker. I'd like to see a goalkeeper. What do you think? So I believe, from what I'm understanding and who I'm talking to, the Holgate rumour is true and it's close. So I'm not against it by any means. I just don't truly understand it fully. Hickey's worked with him before at Barnsley, so may well be able to get the best out of him. Fingers crossed he can do. But what do you think? Do you think it's one that we should be getting in on loan, using out one of our 2 Premier League? I know not everybody rates it. I rate him as a player. But my favourite player is George Baldock. And Anel is best permanent signing we've made in the last probably 4 or 5 years, if not longer. So, strange one for me. So that's the first rumour I wanted to touch on, and let me know your comments on that. Anis Slimani, who was one of the names we talked about in the previous video. This is the centre midfielder that breaks up play. Tunisian international, I think, is the one. Just as a footnote, he was one of Paul Mitchell's top transfer targets. Paul Mitchell, our head of recruitment. So he's been a long-term target for us. With that in mind, and it looking likely that it could happen, I wouldn't be surprised to see him come in. I think a lot of deals will start to happen now that it's ticked over into July, because it's the new financial accounting period, isn't it? So clubs will now be wanting to sell so that these figures are on this year's accounts and things of that nature. So I think there's a little bit of technicalities and logistics that go into these sort of transfer windows. Benny Traore from Hacken. This is the young, exciting kid up front that's rumoured. It's got 12 in 13. He's rumoured to be available for as little as 5 million. I know we touched on him last video, but I think he's worth mentioning again because we continue to be linked with him. No firm bid yet, as far as I'm aware, but he is one I think we should definitely be looking at. Conor Cody's all but done to Leicester. Now, I think it's a shame we've missed out on Conor Cody, but I won't be paying 7.5 million for him like they're rumoured to be doing, with add-ons to 8.5. So you'd assume that'd be promotion bonuses. And looking at some of Leicester's signings, Harry Winks isn't an elite player by any means, but he's a good Premier League player, or certainly a good squad Premier League player. And I think in that league, in Championship, he'll do well. Leicester are looking good for me. I don't look past them for an automatic promotion berth. I think they could well be favourites for League where they're making the moves. I'll come on to some more in a minute, but I'm just going to catch up on your comments so we don't get too far away. So, thoughts on Jebo, Josh? Yes, I'm just about to come to him, pal. Morning, Gareth. You okay, mate? Declan, do I think Tommy Doyle will come back to United or not? Well, I'll touch on that as well. Everton see Jebo as 2, Calvin Lewin 2.0. I think you might be right. No space. So Josh agrees. No space for another right-sided defender. It's probably our strongest position. Nel, Bash, and George and Bogle. I think Bash is gone, and I don't. That sounds awful, and it's a little bit like I was with Billy, and I'm comfortable being the heel in this situation because I love Bash and I want him to stay. I want him to see out his 10th year with us, so he gets his testimonial and everything that he deserves. But I wouldn't be comfortable if Anel goes down with injury. I wouldn't be comfortable with Bash coming in, if I'm honest. But having said that, I don't think we should be wasting a loan spot just on covering that area of the squad when we've so many other, not weaknesses all over the pitch, but so many other priorities to fill, haven't we? So Sarah says, I'd love Jebo to stay, see what he can really do. I agree. Well, I'd like him to stay at the club. I want him to sign a new contract, and I want him to have a year out on loan in Championship. I don't think he's quite ready for Premier League level. because I don't think we can give him a consistent run in the team, particularly if we're going to go out and get a striker. So I'd like him to sign a new deal. I want him to stay at the club. I don't think we should be selling him, but we'll touch on it. But by the same token, JG doesn't rate Jebo. And I've heard other people say the same. Do I mean Nottingham Forest or Leicester? I don't know if I've misspoken on anything, but I'm not sure what you're on about there, mate. If you can just clarify for us. Oh, Leicester. So Sarah again says, wasn't that impressed, but last few games saw something from him I'd not seen before. So I'm just going to have to think about who we're talking about here. I don't know who we're on. See, this is why I need to keep up with comments, isn't it? Maybe that's Jebo. I assume that's Jebo that you're talking about. Yeah, I would agree. In fact, I'm going to call him out here, Andy the Blade, my dad. What are we bringing Jebo on for? I think I mentioned it in one of the rambles. What are we bringing Jebo on for? And he had an absolute barnstormer. He were everywhere. Anyway, he slumps back into his seat, didn't it? This is a professional football scout who knows his stuff. Just every bad call he makes, I try and pick him up on it and make sure I broadcast it to hundreds of people. Rangers had £2.5 million bid for Traore and won't up their bid as it stands, but Blades are interested, from Alan Nixon. Cheers, Scott. Much appreciated, mate. Traore and Ndiaye. I know, Blade Runner, tell me about it. What an attacking midfield. Dizzying defences with their wizardry. That combination is so exciting, even if it's just for a season. Got a sneaky feeling we'll sign some really good Premier League players. I think we'll sign players good for the Premier League. I don't think we'll be signing a lot of Premier League players. But if that's what you mean, the first bit, I agree, pal. I agree. I think I'm quietly, and I don't, this is going to be on record now, it'll get clipped up, I'm sure, like Scott likes to do to me. But I'm quietly confident that we'll do all right. I'm not saying we'll definitely stay up, but like Eki is quite an understated manager. I think we're going to go about ourselves this season quite understated, under the radar. I think there's other clubs that will struggle. I think Luton is the obvious one to point to, although they've started making some shrewd moves. Signed up Carlton Morris on a new contract. They're trying to make McCambie's deal permanent. They've got Rotherham lad, the winger that we were looking at a little bit. I can't remember his name. Ogbenny, that's his name. So they're doing a few little bits. I think Luton will struggle, though. They're the obvious one to point to. I also think Wolves won't be that strong this year. You know, they're getting weaker all the time. Sol Ruben Neves. It depends who they bring in, doesn't it, I suppose? And it's very early to call. I think Bournemouth will start to pull away as they've now looked at more investment. So hopefully Forest can get dragged back in. That'd be great. Guys, it's outrageous, no signing yet. Get the checkbook out, give Eki a chance of keeping us up. Yeah, loads of time though, guys. Loads of time. Yeah, mate. We're in trouble. No takeover. Linked with average players. Come on, Stu. Come on, Stu. We're all right. There's a bit of time yet. Don't worry. Josh again says, losing Jebo at this stage of his development would be terrible business. His price can only increase. I agree. I think when you're talking about Jebo and his development, we're benefiting from facts that, well, he's not English, he's Canadian, but he's a domestic-based player. He's 19 and he's showing potential. He's certainly not the proven article, but there's a premium that comes with these sort of players. And he is, at the minute, the equivalent, like's been said earlier, to our Calvert-Lewin when Everton first came in and nabbed him. It were $1 million then. I think with inflation, 5 million won't be too far away now with what he's been rumoured to be. And with Jebo, it's rumoured that Juve, Dortmund, Leverkusen, Newcastle, Everton, Spurs, Villa, all looking at him for around 5 million quid because he's in last year of his deal. So from what I hear, he's quite a grounded lad. And I don't think we're out of the conversation for extending his contract, but it's whether he can buy into that long-term development. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. It's one to watch. I don't think it's an absolute nightmare if he goes. We need a monster sell-on fee because he doesn't impact the first team currently. But we're a Premier League club now. We should be able to hold on to our better assets and our potential first teamers in the future. So keep him for me if we can. Aaron says there's usually plenty of negativity from fans based on the last few seasons and how the Prince and Co have managed the challenges. I'm optimistic. Good. I like that, mate. So am I. So am I. It's appreciated. It's like going back to yesteryear's sell, sell, sell. I know, Gaz. I know. So we won't. I don't think there'll be a fire sale. Darren's been quite vocal on Twitter saying we don't intend to sell anybody. And then, I mean, I suppose a talking point that we could get to is, I mean, I've got all contract lengths on bladesramble.com, but there's so many players out of contract at the end of next season or this coming season. That is a worry for some, me included. You know, get George Baldock sat down, get John Egan sat down. You know, Illiman and Sander have gone, but other decent squad players, good Premier League players, in my eyes, we need to tie them down. And I'll just finish on this one. Jebo's a good squad player, and if we need through the back end of the season, we need bottom, we should go route one with his pace. I think, to be honest, we may well keep Jebo. I think his development would be best served at playing 46 games in Championship. But the new way we're going to have to play, being under more pressure and catching teams on the break, I think his pace, I think we may well keep him in the squad for his pace on the break, unless Brewster can prove himself to stay fit. So we might have to sacrifice him playing regularly for him to be in and around the squad, which I'm sure he won't mind because he's playing in Premier League. Now, the next one I'm going to get to is Ryan Manning. Ryan Manning, the one that we talked about some time ago in terms of our squad build. We're now finally linked with him. And again, I've got it on authority that we have spoken to his people. He wants to make a move happen, whether that's with us or someone else. I think this is an absolute no-brainer for me. Absolute no-brainer. Because it leads me into Mr. Vancouver's question. Anything new on shirt sponsors and Jackie Longthrow's contract? So Jackie Longthrow's there's nothing new on shirt sponsors. Once we get a shirt sponsor, they will release the kits, because the kits are ready to go, but with no shirt sponsor, so I can't give you anything on that, Mr. Vancouver, I'm afraid, mate. Jackie Longthrow wants a longer deal. We've only offered him a year. He's now touting himself about to other clubs, which is his right. But I posted something on Twitter myself saying he's earned a new contract offer, but if he can get better than what we're going to offer him money-wise, then more power to him. I think more fool him if he chooses to walk away from what will probably be an initial starting berth in Premier League. But in the bigger picture, which is probably why I don't want to accept a one-year deal, I think Reece Norrington-Davies becomes our left centre-back. And with that, frees up a space at left wing-back, because I don't think Max Lowe's good enough. Ryan Manning coming in is not only an upgrade on Max Lowe, he's somebody we can tie down for 3-4 years. And I think also, if the worst was to happen, and nobody likes thinking like this, but we've got to be realistic, he's proven himself to be a top Championship left wing back. So if we were to get relegated, he's then tied down to the squad. We know he can perform to a high level in the Championship, and it's safeguarding ourselves for the future. And that's what we've got to look at doing. Ryan Manning, 5 goals, 10 assists for Swansea last season, from left back, essentially, left wing back. It suits us down to the ground. Enda Stevens 2.0, maybe not, but we'll see. Let me know what you think. Another one is obviously Tommy Doyle. Tommy's the one that we want to talk about, and he's the one that we want back. From what I understand, talks are ongoing, but nothing concrete as yet. It's said that things will pick up a little bit once Euros are over, because he's away with England at the moment at under 21s. But I'm not sure. I think we'll get him back. But I think it'll be on loan. We'll see. What do you think? I think we're going to be priced out of a move for a permanent, but I think it needs to be permanent. It needs to be a permanent deal for me, because we're losing Ndiaye and Berger in the next summer. I've no doubt about that. And comment if you disagree. I don't think we'll be able to sell them because of that. Because if a club comes, I know clubs have been rumoured to be interested, but I think if a club comes in and bids 20 million for Illiman because he's only got a year on his deal, well, he's walking away from a £20 million sign-on fee as a free agent next season. He's not going to take it. and no club's going to pay 50 million, so 30 million to club and 20 million to player when he's only got a year left on his deal, unless they're really desperate. So I don't see him leaving for anything but a free at the end of the season. And we don't want Tommy Doyle being a loan player who's then potentially going to go back, particularly if worst happens and we get relegated. So bite the bullet, United, push the boat out, get him in permanently, 5-year deal. And I think that's on the table. It's not out of the question, but I think we'll struggle to meet the asking price. So let's get back into some more of your comments. Sharp trying to convince Ndiaye to take the number 10 shirt. Ruins the song. Yeah, there's an article in the Star about this from James Shield. I haven't read the article yet, but I have read the talking points. And Billy were laughing that he wants Illiman to take the number 10 shirt because he thinks that's his next natural step, which isn't a lot to some people, but it is to us, and particularly when it's been endorsed by a club icon in Billy Sharp to take the number 10 from him. But it does ruin the song. We'll have to sort the song out, won't we? So they were joking about that as well. Dean was same as Jebo at first, and look how he turned out. Do you know what, Pete? I see a lot of, now I were only getting into, I only started supporting Blades as Dino were his first stint, we're on his way out. But he reminds me a lot of Dino in terms of his raw qualities. He's clearly not at the same level at the moment, but his build, the way he runs, his attributes, I think there's a lot of Dino about him. So, yeah, I agree. He turned out okay, didn't he? Blades legend. I don't know what Scott is laughing at, but probably me, how I'm going through this. Don't understand why we didn't go for Ogbenny. We may have been in for him. Pal, but does he really fit our system, if we're honest? I think he's predominantly a winger. Look, he's versatile and he can work anywhere down the right-hand side. He has for Rotherham. But again, we don't need a right wing back. I don't think he goes well in centre midfield. I think you can play him up front, which I think he does for Ireland, if I'm not wrong. But to me, as a free signing and a squad man, I think he's good, but I think he's probably closer to Luton's starting 11 than he would be ours if he came to us. So maybe that's been part of the conversation. I don't think he's a massive miss, if I'm honest. I said that, and he'll go and score at Bramall Lane in 90th minute, wanting to take 3 points for us. Typical. Jebo's pace could help us out. Absolutely right, pal. Who was in charge of contracts last 2 seasons? They want sacking. I get this theory. Because and it's been put to Darren, who's close to the club, and he's sort of said and intimated, look, if you were the owner, you wouldn't, you can't necessarily think too long term, because you don't want to set up a new owner with not burdens, but sort of financial necessities that they have to go to. So if he signs McBurney up to a rumoured 5-year deal like it were going to be, then new owner might come in and say, what are we doing here? I don't want to keep Ollie McBurney for 5 years. So it may affect the takeover deal, I think, is ultimately what they're getting at. I don't tend to agree with that. I think you secure your assets. And if you end up with, a Jack Rodwell at Sunderland situation, then you deal with it when you come to it, but the owner will go in with open eyes about that, the new owner. So secure your assets. For me, John Egan this season, if somebody comes in for him, he's worth what? 6, 7, 8 million quid with a year left on his deal. Not to us, but in terms of what a realistic offer would be, he's going to hold the cards now, isn't he, when it comes to contract negotiations, because he's only got a year left. I just think it's been quite poor over. I know why it's happened. I can understand the logic behind it, why it's happened. But I agree, Josh. It's not been great, and we're suffering now in terms of player contracts because of it. I think we've got a plan, but we're biding our time, not rushing into signings for other clubs with money to come in and snatch the player. Yeah, I think I was discussing this with somebody yesterday, and I think there's a fine line between sort of biding your time and waiting too long. And we've got to get that right, because don't get me wrong, we haven't got the budget to be blowing on players that are not going to do a job for us, but we do need to start making some moves. Manning for me would be a prime example. If we sort of and ah about Ryan Manning because we've got 2, 3, 4, 5 other left wing backs we're looking at, and who can we get cheaper, and where can we save 100 grand here or there, then Southampton's going to swoop in and get him, or Luton's going to swoop in and get him. Like it's probably happened with Ogbenny. So I think we can't procrastinate over these things too long. We need to get in and start getting some deals done, and I think that'll start to happen now over the next week or two. Now that players are due back in training, I think we're back on Monday tomorrow, day after tomorrow. So need to get Manning deal done. He's a free in a position we're desperate for. Agreed, Scott. I mean, free is never free, is it? Because there's a signing on fee that comes instead of the transfer fee. They know that they can claim that because they know the value, and particularly nowadays with agents. But it's a much better deal than we're getting for. I think he's a £5 million player, which doesn't wow, let's go get him. But if we can get him for £1 million sign-on fee, then it's a win-win for everybody. And he does. I think he improves our starting 11. People don't realise we're just in July. The only reason other teams are signing players is because loads of teams are massively need massive rebuilding. Maybe I see that thought process as well. I'm not totally against that. If we get Traore, we could sell and die. He can't play 2 number 10s. Well, that's the thing, because we can, and we have. We played McAtee, who's a 10, and we played Illiman in the same team. So we now play. Eki's adapted our style to be 1 number 9 and 2 10s off if we need. Now, I don't think we'll necessarily play that in the Prem. I think we'll play more a number 9 and Illiman just deeper as a more traditional number 10. And I think we'll play 3 in midfield. So if Traore comes, I'd expect him to be either an option off the bench, Fossey, McBurney, the number 9, but more of what we're talking about for Jebo, an outlet with his pace then, because we're going to have to play a different way slightly. And we saw that with Wild the last time we went up. We went from the Duffy formation in the Championship with the number 10 behind the 2 strikers, and we went to a flat 3 with 2 strikers up top, didn't we? So Illiman affords us that flexibility because he can drop into the 10 or he can be further up. So we've got options, which is good, and I think Traore definitely helps us with that. You had a lovely conversation with Darren about Robbo, did you, Scott? Fair dues. Good stuff. Anything new that you want to add? But he's left, but he can still extend. Yeah, his contract's expired, and he can still extend, but we want a decision by Monday, really, whether he's in or out. Do you think losing Jack Robinson is a huge loss? Now, I know there's some supporters of him and there's some detractors of him, and I fall into both categories sometimes. But do you guys think that we will suffer massively as a club if he doesn't re-sign? Because I don't. I don't think we will. I think he's a Championship player. I think he's earned a contract offer, as we said earlier. But if he doesn't sign, more fool him, because we'll move on and we'll get somebody else, particularly if Reece Norrington-Davies can drop back in. I think there's better left centre-backs out there, if I'm honest. But I wouldn't be upset if he signed. Should I start a Sheffield United Football Manager 23 set? Whatever floats your boat, pal. Yeah, absolutely. Go for it. I played that for ages. Could do it going back on that just to get my knowledge up of foreign market again. Because that's when I was younger and I used to play Football Manager regular. You just develop this global knowledge. I've had people suggesting players to me that I've never heard of. And no doubt it, and this is no criticism, but no, because they built that knowledge through playing it. But I ain't got that knowledge at the moment, I'm afraid. What happened to the Kyle Walker rumour? So the latest on Kyle Walker is that Bayern Munich swooped in. He's still expected to leave City. But Bayern, I think it's fair to say, even with the Sheffield United hats on, slightly bigger club than Leeds. Slightly. Just Bayern hats there. So I can see why he would want to go there. You can't. He's coming to the twilight of his career. I don't think he's ever played abroad, has he? I might be wrong there, but I don't think he's ever played abroad. He might want to do that in a different country. He'll certainly win the league with Bayern. Whether they go well in Champions League, I think everybody's got City are the ones to beat for everybody now, aren't they? But massive club, huge club. Can't begrudge him that. Not a position that we overly need. I think the only chance Kyle Walker comes to Sheffield United is if we survive this season. And best of luck to him. What's going on with Takeover? 2 parties interested. How far along are we? Again, I've no concrete news, Steve, but very close to one party in particular getting exclusivity. Darren uses timescales of he thinks we'll be taken over by the end of the year. I tend to agree from what I've heard, but I don't know enough to be. Nor would I want to jeopardise anything by coming on and talking openly about it. As soon as I can, I will. You know that. Stephen, if a player runs down his contract and then can move for free to get a big signing-on fee, why don't we just give them the same signing-on fee to stay? Yeah, and that was one that we talked about on the last ramble, and it's a very fair point. I was saying I'd more than willingly sacrifice 10 million quid of our budget to sign Illiman up on a new 3-year deal. But we can't pay him what he's going to be paid either. It's not just the sign-on fee. We could pay him 80 grand a week, which would make him our highest paid player ever. But he could walk into Newcastle and get 150 grand a week. And we just can't compare to the offers that are out there. And it's not just monetary, it's honours as well. Is he going to want to scrap and claw at the bottom of the Premier League for survival every time? I'm not convinced he will. For my opinion on this is we don't owe Illiman anything. He didn't drag us out of the Championship because our squad's very good. And this is something I think we lose sight of a little bit, really. We've got a good squad at the moment. I'm not overly... If we've got Reece out, haven't we? And Robbo hasn't signed a contract. But if Premier League kicked off tomorrow, I don't think we're in a terrible state. That doesn't mean we don't need to improve the squad. Of course we do. But I think we sometimes lose sight because it's our own team and we're very critical, and rightly so at times. I think we've got a good squad and we overlook that sometimes. So going back to your point, I think we could offer him it. I don't think he'll accept it, and I don't blame him for that either. So that's where we are, unfortunately. In the Prem, we will get drunk. Well, that's your opinion, mate. That's your opinion. Any thoughts on Man City keeper we were linked with? I'm asking around about that because he looks really good. I think he's the only keeper not to have conceded in the Euros, playing really well as well. It'll only up his value if we don't move quickly. I think 6 million would have been a push for us anyway, even though it's a bargain price for him. This is James Trafford we're talking about. And it is a good price, a really good price for him. I think the longer it goes, the more eyes get on him and the less likely it is he comes to us. So if we're going to do it, I think we should be doing it now. I would still like Mike Cooper from Plymouth, and I'll bang that drum as long as I can. A bit like Ryan Manning, a bit like Cameron Archer, who I don't think we'll get anywhere near, unfortunately. So, anyway, here's what it is, mate. Can someone help me with singings? Yeah? What do you want me to sing? We are Bladesmen. We are Bladesmen. Super Bladesmen. Do you like Robinson? Do like Robinson, always prone to a mistake. Absolutely right, Kristen. He got found out at this level last time. And I'm not saying he hasn't improved, because I think he has improved as a footballer. We've seen his development, but he's still got a mistake in him and he will get found out. Last time we were in this league, teams used to just drop the ball behind his head and turn us round. We had no chance. Egan having to either stop, start, come over to cover him, leaving gaps then in middle. He's not Premier League level. And I think if he were to sign for us, yes, he might start first few games till Reece comes back. Because I think Reece is the one with potential. And Reece isn't proven at the level, but at least he's got potential. And it very rarely makes a mistake. Looked very, very good when he was left centre-half part of last season. I think he's the long-term option for us. And I think Ryan Manning at left wing-back complements that really well. Also with Reece, what you've got to think about is he gets up and down. He's got an engine, hasn't he? As long as his hamstrings hold tight, it's a little bit more. I don't think we'll go all out this way, but it's a little bit like the old Wilder formation with overlapping centre-halves. And El's more of an underlapping centre-half, but at the moment we've no forward threat down the left other than the wing-back, combining with the left centre midfielder. And I think Reece being in that position allows us to add another option in that dimension where we can overload it. Another signing Blades are after is Anel's international teammate Hammerlich. Yeah, saw this very briefly. I don't know anything about him, to be honest, which is why I haven't really touched on him. But yeah, another a Bosnian player. Listen, bring all Bosnians in you want if they're going to be anything like an L. So we'll see if that develops, and if it does, I'll get you some more info on him. Mustafa Mohamed staying at Nantes, according to a few articles, might have been one of those rumours started by an agent trying to get a new contract. Happens a lot. All the names I'm bringing to you are probably about 10% of the names we're talking to. So it's all we're getting is the ones that are released out in through little places here and there. That's probably agents or somebody else wanting someone else to come in to make the deal a bigger deal. So we won't know what's happening for a lot of things. And I'm also hearing names that behind the scenes that I can't really talk about due to confidentiality clauses. So, and that's few and far between. So there's loads of stuff happening. For me, in terms of this one, Mohamed, Wolfgang Bailey talked to me about some of the issues that he caused and refusing to play homophobic things and of that nature. Not interested. If you're going down that line, then off you go, pal. You're not welcome here anyway. Best of luck to him, but he's not one for us. Big season for Naurud. Yeah, Norwood, it's a big season for him, Wayne. You're right, pal. I think he's past his peak, if I'm honest. But we're very quick to forget how good he was first half of last season. He struggled massively, he dropped off a cliff, really, second half. But fortunately, we had players that could pull us along. Norwood, I'd like us to be at a point where he's not the starter. At minute, your guaranteed starter is Berger and Tommy Doyle if they come back. If Tommy comes back, I'd like us to get another in there. If Slimani comes in, I think he'll sit deeper of the three, and then Berger and Tommy can push on, and that would be my starting three. I don't know enough about Slimani, but obviously we're going off reputation, numbers, stats, YouTube clips. But Norwood to be an option rather than a first team regular for me. We'd get drunk if we play 2 under-20s. Okay. We only need to be better than 3 other clubs in the Prem. We do. Luton, Wolves, another, hopefully Forest. Everton may well struggle again. I mean, it's 2 in a row now that they've just gone out by the skin of their teeth. Huge clubs, so they're not often talked about every year, and people will probably just dismiss it as, well, they'll get better now because Dyche has had more time to bed in. I haven't seen it from them yet. So it's going to be a tough Premier League. I think it always is, like, isn't it? But you have years where it's stronger than others. And some of the players that are coming, like Villa, only getting better. These are teams that we could have nicked some points off, but Villa are getting really strong now. Bournemouth are going to kick on. I'm convinced of it because that money that's coming there. So these sort of teams are getting further away from us. Hopefully with our takeover, we'll be in a similar conversation at some stage, but we can't rely on that at the moment until it happens. Signings for Football Manager 23. Can't help you. If anybody can help him in comments, then please be my guest. But I'm out of touch, I'm afraid, with Football Manager. Are we still getting Tommy Doyle back and McAtee? McAtee's a no. I don't think McAtee will come back. I may be wrong, and feel free to come back and laugh at me if it happens, because I hope it does. But I don't think McAtee will come back into this side. City want him to play in a more possession-based team, and I know somebody pulled me on that and said we are a possession-based team. We are. We like having the ball and we like progressing, but that we're in the Championship, we're naturally going to be out of possession more, I think, than we are in possession in the Prem. So I'm going to have to adapt our style, and that won't include McAtee. I think Tommy Doyle will come back. I'm confident he'll come back. I think it's leaning more sort of 65, 35 that he'll come back. But I just think at the moment it looks most likely that it'll be a loan, which I think leaves us in a bit of a sticky position. I think, which is great because he bolsters our team and he strengthens us. But I think a lot of things are risking what happens at the end of this coming season. If we're relegated, we lose Sander, we lose Illiman, and Tommy will go back. He won't come and join us in Championship again because he'll have had a season in Prem. So get him on a perm, secure him, and then that's our long-term future. So we can build a team around a player like Tommy Doyle. That's just my opinion. Do we know if the rumours about Forest being forced to pull the plug on Hendo deal is true? Don't know, actually. I hadn't heard that, but I hope so. Depending on what happens with De Gea, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go back to Man U. It wouldn't be first choice, but they clearly don't fancy De Gea. I don't know if you've heard what's happened with that, but it sounds ridiculous that they offered him. He's on 350 or 375 a week, something absolutely outrageous from when he was one of the main players at the club, and now he's obviously declined in ability and reputation. They offered him a low ball deal, thinking he wouldn't take it, and he did. So now he signed it. They pulled the deal and said, actually, take even lower. So they're still in negotiations, but they clearly don't rate De Gea, and I think it's disrespectful more than anything else. So if he's anything about him, he'll walk out the door, and probably they'll need Dino back at United as a number 2, which he won't be happy about, because we know for everything I love about Dean Henderson, and I think he'd be a great signing for us, he's just a step too far this season. He has an ego, doesn't he? And I think you need that sometimes to be top level, but he won't like being a number 2. Henderson staying at United, well, there you go. That's news to me, but it don't surprise me. Maitland-Niles held talks with the Blades. Yes, he has. Yeah, he has. We've spoken to him and his representatives a week, 10 days ago now, as well as 3 other clubs. And that's normal. A little bit like Ogbenny, though. I think Maitland-Niles is a level above Ogbenny, and we would offer him first team foot. He'd get in our starting 11, wouldn't he? Let's be right. I think he comes into that 3 with Berger and hopefully Tommy Doyle. Can you imagine that? That's a right 3 for us. And we could offer him security of a long contract, a starting berth. So we as much as you tend to fear it when you hear other clubs are involved, like a Forest or whoever it might be, because they're a year ahead of us. Well, we can offer him different and potentially more. The only sticking point for us with permanent deals is we always, and I would back this policy all the way, we always include a huge, I think it's around 50% wage reduction in contracts on relegation. So as we will be one of the favourites to go down, players will have half an eye on, well, I'm all right signing this 30 grand a week deal, but I'm going to be on 15 grand in Championship this time next year. Whereas I could be in Forest's squad, keeping me 30 grand a week, even if I'm not starting. So it depends what their desire's like. It depends what security they're after. It depends how confident they are in what they can do for us and how we can perform as a club. So I'd love Maitland-Niles. Particularly, there's no transfer fee as well. I think it's really smart squad building that. If we're going to play a less expansive back 3, it stays in place for the majority of the time, I wouldn't be worried about that left centre-back actually being a left pegger. Yeah, that's another way of looking at it, to be fair, Steve. Yeah, I can see the logic behind that. We will be under the cosh a lot more rather than pushing forward. I think that it's always nice to have that balance. But if we'd have got Cody for, say, 2-3 million, which it don't look like we'll have, Leicester have obviously jumped ahead of the queue by saying, we'll pay you 7.5 mil. I think Cody would have fit into our defence, and we could have adapted to have 3 right footers essentially. I know Nell's decent on his left as a solid block. So yeah, I agree. But I think if we go with Reece there and a Nell on the right side, we've still got the potential to overlap and push on, even if it's on the break, which worked for his first season, didn't it, with Jock and Bash. First match against Villa, we'll start Fleck and Norwood. I'll still... Don't. We won't. Come on, Kristen. We're better than that. Will the Prince sell? Yes, he will. Yes, he will. No doubt about it. Sarah's laughing at me again. One of our ramblers, Sarah. Thank you for your support. Any news on Davis and Maitland-Niles? Seem to be linked a lot. Maitland-Niles we just talked about. Tom Davis. I hadn't heard it for the last few days, to be honest. He's another one that I think is a touch. I prefer Maitland-Niles to Davis. That's straight up. But Davis would be a good squad man at this level. It wouldn't surprise me if he came in. I don't think he massively improves us. He gets in our 11 at the moment, but if we were to sign both, for example, and get Tommy Doyle back, then it's Davis that drops out of the midfield. So we've got Sander, Maitland-Niles, Doyle, and then Davis waiting to come off the bench. I don't know if we'll do that because we've just signed Johnny Fleck up just to make sure I think it's more of a safety signing to extend Flecky. And then we've obviously Norwood as well. So that's a huge number. Could happen. I'm not saying it against it. Again, asking about Davis, Everton lads. Dean Henderson refused a recall in Jan. I've not heard that. Doesn't surprise me because of the way he is. Doesn't surprise me at all, if I'm honest. But he won't get in at Forest now that they've signed the other lad. So it's a tricky one. I think it wouldn't surprise me if Henderson went somewhere. But where's he going to go? Where would he go? Thanks to Scott. So what new players have we got so far? None. Nobody. We've nobody new in, have we? But that'll change. That's coming. Scott confirming it. Thanks, mate. Is today the day lots of contracts expire? Yeah, well, yeah, the free agents now. So does that mean much in terms of timescale signing free agents? Yeah, it's probably a touch quicker. I mean, we're able to negotiate with players anyway to sort of post date and sign them today. But it's neither in or there really, but I suppose it does make it quicker with no official attachment. Like somebody could go and nab Jack Robinson now without us saying anything. They'd have to come to us and say we've made an agreement or anything like that. Snap James Trafford up for 6 million. It's a steal for a 20-year-old. Completely agree. It's just whether we've got 6 million to spend on a keeper into it and where we want to allocate whatever funds are available. But I agree. Some deals come up and you can't get away from them. You can't avoid them. With the Kyle Walker thing, we didn't need Kyle Walker. But if he becomes available, you sign him. And it's similar for me with James Trafford. 6 million quid for who is probably going to be an England goalkeeper. Get him signed. United wanted Dubravka. Oh, when Dubravka got recalled, United wanted him back. Yeah, fair dues. I like Dubravka as well, but he's getting on now, isn't he? De Gea is a free agent, might be worth a... Come on. De Gea is a free agent, similar to the conversations we've just been having, but he's still in negotiations with Man U. Are we still interested in O'Brien at Forest? Don't think we'll pay the 8 million fee. Yes, and yes, in terms of I agree with you. We are still interested in Lewis O'Brien. He's interested in coming to us. It all depends on it's all about the Benjamins. It's all about what Forest want for him, isn't it? So, yeah, they'll have to come down in what they're asking. I think they've made a mistake by signing him clearly because they didn't see him in seeing the plans. But for us, he's a great signing. For me, I think we sign it. I think we'll sign Lewis O'Brien if we can't get Tommy Doyle. So there might be a little bit of weight on that. But then we're dilly-dallying, aren't we? We're waiting on something else happening. What's to stop a Luton coming in and nabbing Lewis O'Brien, or a Leicester, or a Southampton? Because don't get me wrong, even though they're in Championship, still a bigger club than us. I think we've got something short term that we can offer them over those, which is Premier League football. But they can offer them same wages and almost a guaranteed return, particularly size at clubs that have come down. I'd hate him to go to somewhere like Leeds. Hate it. But they've been linked previously. De Gea will go to Saudi. Yeah, I can see that. That's a very real possibility. With the last domino in the transfer game, we'll have to wait and see what scraps are left. I don't think it's quite that bad, Scott, but I do know what you mean. We're not going to be the ones to make the first move and go and say, Villa, here's 20 million for Cameron Archer. It's just not us, is it? It's not going to happen. If we get Doyle on loan, we'll only have one more Prem loan, and I don't want to waste it on Holgate. This is what we're talking about, yeah. I think if we take it as read that Doyle's going to be one of our Premier League loans, then it leaves you very limited in what else you've got. I don't think we'll get Archer, because I think Villa will want to keep him for Europe and English quota. But in January, there's a chance we can get Archer if they're out of Europe. No, and I know I keep going back to Archer, but I think the kid's going to be a superstar, and he's getting more and more attention as we go along, and less chance of him coming to us. How come Eki only got 20 million to spend and Wilder got more than that? It's not a 20 million flat Eamon, as we've talked about, mate. That's not the figure. It's similar to what we had first time up, rather than second time. But we have got to be more cautious. Look at the mess it left us in last season. If we hadn't gone up, God. Trafford, Manning, O'Brien, Maitland-Niles, Slimani, Tommy and Traore, come on, you blades. Oh, that's the one, innit? That's the transfer window. Completed it, mate. Completed it. Yes, Stu, I'm with you on that, mate. Cameron Archer would be fantastic, says Kristen. Absolutely. Yeah, he's the one for me. But Scott likes your list, Stu. Archer will be better than Dom Calvert-Lewin. I think he's close now, to be honest, where Dom's playing. When does MLS finish for talks with O'Brien? I'm not. Is it October time? That won't affect anything, I don't think. He's a Forest player, isn't he? So we can have him any time. We're gonna have to wrap up in a minute because I'm babbling. I'm rambling on. The way you speak about Archer, is it time to get the flag out again? Yes. Get a flag out, Scott. Love Cameron Archer. Do you think a lack of signings could be down to a takeover is close? No, because the budget's set, Dave. So it was intentionally done that way, so we can still operate in the transfer market without the takeover affecting us. That's why even if a takeover comes before the close of play in the transfer window, which I don't think will happen, it's a bit too soon, it won't have a massive impact. Don't get me wrong, it might mean that we can go and slap a £10 million offering on top of what we've already had, but unlikely. Would you rather the Prince or another unknown investment consortium coming in? Every chance a new owner will be trying to make money rather than looking after the future. From what I've heard, I think we're going to be in good hands. So I can't talk too much about it, but I'm not overly... Listen, there's concern with everything, isn't there? Because of the connections I were able to build with Dozy, I were on the Dozy train. And I've still got contacts there. But everybody had their own opinions on that, didn't they? And what risk that would bring. And I have my own opinions as well. So even if somebody comes in and looks absolutely great, an American or I know Saudis have been linked or whatever it is, a consortium, then there'll always be people that are worried about the risk, and there'll always be people that think, brilliant, this is just what we need. Some people back the Prince, other people think he's done nothing but asset strippers. I think you look at him taking us over in League One and we're now in Premier League. I think it speaks for itself, to be honest, but you'll always get pros and cons to everything. But I'm not overly concerned with the sort of things I'm hearing. And just to finish, Middledale says, do you think we only sign a left-footed centre-back in if Jack Robinson definitely leaves or even if he stays? I think we will, if he stays, I think we'll sign one, maybe two left wing-backs because Reece will move to left centre-half and Jack Robinson will be the backup. I think if he leaves, we'll sign a left centre-back. And I think we'll be okay. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you, everybody, for your support. It's very much appreciated. As it says here, visit us at bladesramble.com. Please subscribe, like the video, share it. We're trying to grow as best we can. 2K before match day, that's the aim. So all your support's appreciated. Thanks very much for your time this morning, and we'll be back soon. Ramble on, up the blades.